Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome back to the top 5 games of the year, and this year is 2022. That might seem a little bit much for now, but I'm sure when I come back to watching these in later years, it will make a lot more sense. So just to begin with, I'm not going to be doing a top 5 disappointments or top 5 games in year video. I am going to be reverting back to just the top 5 games for this year, and that's purely because I feel as though it needs to be a bit more streamlined this year. Just making the one video be a lot easier than doing the 3. And actually, I was a little bit concerned as to whether I'd be able to complete this video, because I have to have played the games in order to do this video on them. There have been a number of good games this year that I haven't had the opportunity to play. And then there's also the main point of that was that some of the games that I actually played that made it on this list came out in December, which notably is always after the proper or the other Game of the Year awards. So they never seem to factor in the games released in December. So it's almost like if you want to be considered, you need to have your game submitted by October. So Call of Duty and what have you can be considered, although. But I'm going to quickly cover the disappointments and the best game in year video topics as well. So my biggest disappointment of the year for 2022 is Total War Warhammer 3. I feel like the quality of game from the Total War Warhammer has sort of come down incrementally with each one, and I think it's probably because in a way it's more of the same. I did actually appreciate the fact that they tightened up the story aspect in number 3, the one that came out this year, but I'll be honest, it's been less and less, I said the word is impressive, less and less relevant to me, and less enjoyment as the series has gone on, and I can pretty much tell that by my playtime as well in those games. So yeah, pretty happy to put that on there. I don't really know what I was expecting. Maybe like a big finale, a really stepped up game in lots of respects, but it's not something that I feel as though we got. It took 3 Warhammer games to make one game, basically. That's how it feels a little bit. So yeah, that's going to be my biggest disappointment of the year. And now the best game in 2022. So outside of the top 5 games list, which game have I enjoyed playing the most that didn't come out this year? And that one is actually going to be Mount & Blade Bannerlord, and that came out. That was on this list this time last year for 2021. Doing a lot more experimenting with mods, and there's been a lot of really good overhaul mods that have developed over the last year. One of the ones I've been playing quite a lot of in the last few months has been the Realm of Thrones, I think it's called, a Game of Thrones style overhaul, which has got the whole of Westeros and the whole of the Essos region as well. It's actually really, really good. It's not perfect by any stretch, and it is only in beta at the minute, but it is more than worth going and playing if you've got Bannerlord and you're looking for something different. A couple of good mods are the ones which serve as a soldier, where you can just play as a single infantry unit. That's been pretty good. I had a little bit of a play around with that. I decided because you can steal Valyrian steel swords in the game, so I decided to join the wildlings so that I could fight the Night's Watch, capture Jon Snow, and steal Longclaw. So yeah, that's always a good laugh when you get to make those little sort of micro quests if you like in the game. I tried going straight to war with the Night's Watch, that's what we're looking for, and if you do that, then pretty much every other faction declares war against you, and that's because they've in the mod they've made it very tight in terms of which factions will and won't declare war on each other. So actually gives the game some structure, which is really nice. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I'm currently the Lord of Highgarden and making loads of money. So yeah, probably because it's one of the ones with the highest prosperity, I would have thought, and trying to, that's sort of more the smaller details that where it tries to be in keeping with the game. So yeah, might be worth checking out. Might be someone to do a video on. Who knows? But yes, it's been really good. So to the top 5 games of the year, 5 minutes later, but there you go. We'll start with number 5. Number 5 this year is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion or something. I'm trying to see if I can see the icon on my desktop now. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, the remade, remastered, whatever version of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, which originally came out on the PSP. Usually I wouldn't include games like this on the list. Thinking about Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 that I played this year and really enjoyed. That's not on this list. Although it is an honourable mention, of course. To be fair, it's probably one of the first times that Square Enix have done a really good job at remaking their previous games. I think they did a sort of like rejigging of the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies and the ones previous, although I've heard mixed stuff about the Final Fantasy 1 to 6 remakes or remasters, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, for the momentous reason, I guess, I decided it should be included. I don't think this sort of thing will ever happen again. I mean, look at what is now becoming a little bit of a farce with the Final Fantasy VII remake. And yeah, literally for the most part, the game is almost shot for shot. In terms of the story, it is anyway. There's been some really nice new refinements in the actual battling and some of the like side questy type of stuff, which is different from the PSP game, or at least I don't remember it from there, so it feels new. And that is, yeah, they are feel like actual additions rather than taking away from the source material. I think that's because at the time when it came out on the PSP, it was probably one of the best graphical PSP games. And they've done a pretty good job at upgrading that. I just think that the sort of combat at least was quite basic in the PSP. There was some good bits to it, but it feels like it's been a little bit more fleshed out. Now you're still running on the real system, where it has the faces and then the numbers, and if you draw certain numbers and faces and whatever combos, then you can do things like summons or special attacks and that sort of thing, and invulnerability to physical attacks, unlimited MP for a short amount of time, that sort of thing, which I always found really good actually in the game. It's a bit of an interesting mechanic. Perhaps wouldn't want to see it universally, but for a one-off is pretty good. I did feel as though some of the animations and graphics and things were a little bit janky, and I mean like janky in the nicest way possible. I'm nitpicking, but it sort of felt a bit like the Edge of Eternity animations, which I don't have a problem with. It's not an issue. It's just something that I did find a little bit jarring, and I guess that's the move from the old graphics into the new ones. So yeah, I actually enjoyed it, and it's well worthy of being on the list, actually. Yeah, I can't really have too much complaints about it. I think it was a bit expensive for what it was, coming out at £40 on the PC. But yeah, other than that, not bad at all. And number 4. On this year's list goes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Been looking forward to anticipating the game for well over a year. I had a few delays, and yeah, to be fair, I was quite satisfied with the end result. It felt very similar to the old arcade games. Graphics and the music, all the sort of art style bits were all really nice. I actually really appreciated that, and I think it did justice to being like a new old school game. One of the things I noted is that I haven't played, for example, like Streets of Rage 4 or any of the sort of new old school beat 'em up games. So for me, it was sort of my first foray into that, which I think probably helped quite a lot in maybe me thinking it's better than it is. I know that there was a lot of pretty good reception around Streets of Rage 4, and that sort of is of a very similar ilk in terms of what it's trying to do. And yeah, I mean, I was perhaps on reflection a little bit disappointed with the collector's edition that I bought. Some of the stuff in there is nothing. There's nothing in there that I've wanted to use or even like display separately outside of the box. So yeah, that was my only real disappointment with it. It's not anything that is ever going to make top game of the year for me, but because that's not my bread and butter in terms of the games I like to play. But for what it was, I enjoyed it. Not something I spent a huge amount of time playing this year. It was nice though to be able to have it on the Steam Deck as well, and I've been enjoying games that I've been able to play well on the Steam Deck. I know I should have mentioned this for number 5, but the same thing with Crisis Core. So yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge, well worthy of a place on the list. I think it's been one of the really better games this year. And yeah, one of the better experiences that I've had as well. So yeah, hats off to the team behind that. And yeah, hopefully this might mean there's a few more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games in the future. And number 3... for this year goes to Stray, which was one that came a little bit out of the blue and sort of took a lot of the gaming world, if you like, by storm a little bit, because I think it's something different that we haven't really explored before, the life of a cat in a post-apocalyptic world. Sort of very well similar, reminiscent or feel, I guess, to Biomutant as well, that came out the year previous, which was really good. But it was nice to have a different change of pace of games that I usually play. It's not something that I would usually pick up in the same way that we've had with Shredder's Revenge as well. So it's been yeah, it was quite interesting to go and play that. You know, very sort of like adventure, puzzle solving. Well, it's not necessarily so much action, but definitely like the puzzle solving and intrigue of the story and what have you. And yeah, it was one of those that's, yeah, like I say, just came a little bit out of the blue. Really interesting idea for a game. Nice. Most of the time it's quite nice and relaxing, and then other times you got the globs chasing, whatever I don't remember what they're called now, chasing after you, and you got to like solve these environmental puzzles to get around them, which is a nice touch. And it really feels as though you're making an impact on the world, and I did genuinely want to go through and find out, you know, the story behind where the robots come from, where the humans were, what happened to the land, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think it does a really good job of selling all that. Like I say, not anything that I knew about before it really came out. I got it on the day of launch. Did I try it on the Steam Deck? I didn't play it on the Steam Deck. I played it on the PC proper, and yeah, it was, well, one of the more really memorable games this year. I think well deserving as number 3. Like I say, it's not a game that I was that it could ever really be number 1 for the year, but definitely, you know, a sort of smaller game that has actually really impressed me this year, and it's something that I would certainly recommend going and checking out, especially if you're into that sort of gameplay. But you know, it's not, you know, action orientated or anything like that. It is a bit more slower for the most part, slower paced. Although I did find the like I say, the sort of puzzle bits where you're being chased or where you're trying to move the globs around, that sort of thing, a little bit nerve-wracking actually, because you do get invested in the cat that you've got, and especially if you like cats like I do. And yeah, I don't know, it felt like you were not really very far away from being got by them, which is not what you want to have happen. So yeah, number 3 this year is Stray. And on to the penultimate game this year. And number 2 goes to Elden Ring, which I'm gathering that I'm going to get some stunned silence here. Why is it not number 1? Which is, a fair question. It's been a worthy winner of countless awards, and it's certainly been a fantastic addition to the Dark Souls games. Admittedly, not really been into any of the previous Dark Souls games. I had Demon Souls for the PlayStation 3 when that came out, and soon regretted it because absolutely stunk at that when it came out. It was not the sort of experience that I was expecting. I think, it totally took me off guard at that time when I had it for the PlayStation 3. But to see where that series has come to now, and obviously I'm aware that I've skipped a lot of the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, that sort of thing. Elden Ring's done a really good, fantastic job, actually, in terms of making a sort of Souls open world game. I know that there were quite a few misgivings about it before it came out, that, it's an open world game, and people saying, oh, it's going to be too easy, that sort of thing. But I've got to say, I really, really enjoyed the ideas that they put into it, particularly with having a mount, for example, having an open world, but not have it feel like you're climbing radio towers and unlocking new areas. The fact that it felt very much like the few Dark Souls levels that I've actually played, just with perhaps a bit more freedom to it. Certainly for me, more than challenging enough, not a game that I managed to complete, although I have seen a fair amount of all the areas. And I can fully understand why people think it's game of the year. People have sunk hundreds and hundreds of hours into it at this point and thoroughly enjoyed it, or enjoyed the challenge, I suppose. And I enjoyed it for my part as much as I possibly can with a Souls-like game, I think. And I don't really have too much bad to say about it, other than I don't necessarily enjoy those type of games all that much. So for me, when I'm thinking what's my favourite game, what game have I enjoyed the most, what game has innovated and has longevity over the year, Elden Ring fits a number of those boxes, but just not enough for me to say this is my particular game of the year. And that should be absolutely no slight on Elden Ring at all. And not that From Software will even care about that, and nor should they, because they've done exceptionally well, and it's well deserving of being number 1 also, if like I say, if I was more into that style of game, because I probably would have put the 100 hours in rather than the 35-40 hours that I put in. I didn't get very far for that amount of time, I must add, but did enjoy it. And I also thought it was really good to be able to play it on the Steam Deck as well, which has been another real big success this year. So the Steam Deck can go on the list of share it with Elden Ring. No, I'm joking. But yeah, there you go. That's the penultimate game. Elden Ring, well deserving. And I got to say, despite what I said, it's touch and go with the winner anyway. In my first draft of the list, Elden Ring was first. So, yeah. Before we go on to the final, I'll just mention a couple of honourable mentions. Mention honourable mentions. Yeah, that was not a good play on words, was it? Anyway, so the first one I'm going to mention is Road Warden, which I played on live stream earlier in the year, which is a text-based RPG, sort of like choose your own adventure style game. Really good, lots of interesting themes in there. I actually really enjoyed the amount of time I did play with it. Unfortunately, just sort of ran out of time in terms of having more opportunity to play that. I can't remember what, something happened. I either went away somewhere in real life, and then didn't get a chance to pick that one back up. But it was really good, and certainly worth another look at for myself if I do get time to do so. Obviously, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 was incredible. I got much further on it than I did when I first had it for the PlayStation 2. And I really enjoyed the remake remaster. It's really good, really solid. And that game is so much better than I even thought it was back in the day. I think it's better than the first one, actually, which is high praise indeed. And then the last one that I didn't get a chance to play, although I've seen a lot of and very nearly bought on a couple of occasions, just wasn't to be this year, was Triangle Strategy, which is another Square Enix game. I've heard lots of really good stuff about it. A lot of things about it being too easy, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I would have enjoyed to play that one through. Just didn't happen this year. And I think the other one, I've got a couple now, another one I haven't played that I would have liked to is probably Midnight Suns. I'm not really into Marvel, that sort of, too much. I don't mind it, but I'm not into it. And that gameplay seems to be something that I would have really enjoyed to play, very sort of, well, made by the same people that make XCOM. So, yeah, bit of a shame I didn't get to pick that one up. And unfortunately, it's really expensive and I can't really justify it. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll play that next year. It might be one that I end up missing. Can't play everything, of course. Not when I'm trying to play a lot of Bannerlord anyway. So yeah, a couple of honourable mentions. Some of them could have potentially creeped into the top 5. There's certainly space on the list for, mainly because the 3 to 5 on the list are games that sort of surprised me this year, rather than something I was anticipating with expectation and then it delivered. So that's been quite nice though, and especially to have a couple of those games come out later on in the year. It's particularly good. So we'll get to the best game of 2022. And yes, it's Chained Echoes at number 1. Maybe a game that you've probably not heard of. So this is in every sense, a JRPG, despite the fact that it's made by a German. That's true. It's basically a one-man team, or it is a one-man team with some, people, contractors coming in to help out with certain specific bits, particularly like the music, for example. The music is really incredible because I don't know how close the tracks are to some of the ones in Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX, but I almost feel as though I'm exploring some of the areas in Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX again. That's how close they feel. I don't know if that's necessarily true or if there's just, sort of like a similar theme in the track. The one where you're Final Fantasy IX, where you're walking around. I think it's Alexandria for the most part. The one that's quite where you play where you with Vivi basically, and it's quite light, bouncy. Yeah, there's a very, very similar track in Chained Echoes, and I don't have a problem with that. I think it's really nice if, paying homage to the games as perhaps some of the games that have helped influence this particular one. So, yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it quite a bit, actually. It did help set the scene, and the music score was incredible, even if it is the same tracks as in the other ones. I think it still did a really good job. As in the other Final Fantasies, I mean. There is like a couple aspects to the game that I don't traditionally enjoy. Some things I can get over quite easily. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of the static turn-based style. So, where you know who's going to have a turn next. I mean, that's okay for the strategic elements. I quite like an ATB though, but that's just me. I guess that's the time I grew up in. And then it also has these transformers, but what I actually mean is called Sky Armor or mechs. I'm not really a huge fan of mechs as a concept, to be honest, but it serves as like the super powered up version of the characters. And it does have various exploration and gameplay benefits to it. So it unlocks a new level of verticality. If you played the game, you'll know what that means. And yeah, it was really, I don't know, the game really did take me back to those earlier Final Fantasy games. And a lot of stuff in there has been done incredibly well. And I think maybe because it was something that I have embarked on and in hiatus, of building a similar type of game. knowing the effort and imagination and complexity that's gone into some of the stuff that's been developed in this game by Matthias is incredible, to be honest. I was thoroughly impressed with so much of it. Like you think about just even in terms of just like building assets and doing the digital art, which I think I read somewhere that Matthias did the vast majority of it. You know, they've made really complex sequences of animations for, and the art, the associated art. There's only going to be, that's the only time in the whole game where you're going to see it, like during that one scene or during that one set piece. And yeah, stuff like that was just incredible to me. That it done such a good job, and some bits were not as good. I noticed a couple of minor bugs in terms of the quests and some of the path work in the maps, in the levels. Some of them didn't quite make too much sense. Some of it was just like, felt like it was a bit tricky, a bit too tricky to work out where I could go through and where I couldn't go through, which as a concept is not too bad. But it sometimes made it a little bit difficult because you want to try and get every chest, for example, in a particular map. And it would have been more handy to know those locations where you can and can't get through. But that's very minor, to be fair. Some of the stuff like having actual maps of the areas that you're walking around in was absolutely incredible. It sounds like minor, but these things take a lot of time to develop and put into the game and have them work properly. And I've just been really, like I say, probably just from my own perspective, but I've been super impressed with the game. The story's really interesting. Takes a few twists and turns that didn't not expect, judging from the start of the game. I won't go through any of it in terms of specifics in case you do want to go and play it following this. But the ending was a little bit bizarre to me. It was slightly disappointing, I suppose, is probably the word I would say. Mainly because things didn't end the way I wanted them to, which is totally fine, obviously. And it doesn't detract from the overall quality of the game either. And it was sort of left with a few questions, a couple ancillary questions to be answered, which I quite like the idea of, because then there's potential for maybe another game. But yeah, it was really good. Got to a point where I couldn't put it down, and the game I've been playing for pretty much all of my Christmas break. So, and once again, another game that's really suited and works really well on the Steam Deck also. So yeah, if you're into more traditional JRPGs with sometimes more of a modern twinge on it, then I recommend it. Right towards the really late game, the only criticism, if I had one, would be that the late end of game content is a little bit weak, I would say. All the bits up to that, really good, particularly like things like the reward board, that sort of thing. I don't know. It's a really good job, to be honest. Like I say, outside of small minor annoyances, I can't fault it whatsoever. Had a really great time with it, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm truly impressed. It's not something I could not achieve that same quality doing it myself, and for Matthias to do that with this game, I'm in awe of, and that's why it fully deserves the top game of 2022. And yeah. So there you have it, my top 5 games of 2022. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I'm interested to know what your best game of 2022 is. I imagine for a couple it will be Elden Ring, and like I said, well deserved. But feel free to. I would encourage anyway you to check out any of the games that have been in the top 5 list. They've all been incredibly good this year. I will say, as a bit of a side note, I was a little bit concerned about the quality of games this year, and up until we got to December, because we then had the Final Fantasy Crisis Core come out, and we also had Chained Echoes as well. So yeah, there's every chance that it certainly could have been Elden Ring's year this year. I mentioned at the start of the video that I'm not doing I've done my top disappointment and top game in year. I am planning on doing a best game of the decade. And I know that it's 2022, so that's not all that particularly useful, but I started doing this list in 2012, which means, yes, I should have done this last year, but I will be doing a ranking the 10 games from 2012 to 2021, those 10 games and ranking them from 1 to 10, which I actually have had a really difficult time doing. I have come up with a final order, but I must say it has not been easy, because trying to work out in my head how I go about ranking these sort of games. Do I factor in, longevity, games I continue to play, hours that I've put in, how much enjoyment I've had, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll be doing that. If you're interested, do let me know. I mean, I'm planning on putting it out anyway, because I think it's a really good thought exercise, and it ties in together all the last top 5 games of the year that I've done previously, other than this year, of course. And that might actually be quite controversial to quite a few people, because there's some really good games on there. For example, there's Skyrim and Fallout 4 and Bannerlord. So, along with a whole host of others, of course. So yes, it becomes a very difficult list to try and rank. But anyway, I'm looking forward to working that out for the final listing. And yeah, hope you have a great new year and a great 2023. And I'll see you all very soon on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.